The views and opinions of this broadcast do not reflect the views and opinions of Armed Media, New Productions and its affiliates. Enjoy the show.
Teflon pan man. I'm the Teflon pan man. Ain't nothing gonna stick on me.
Hello everyone, and welcome to All You Can Eat. It is the podcast about deliciousness, and I'm your host, Rob Rosenthal, coming to you live from New York City, New York. January the 2nd of the new year, 2019. I am glad to be here. If you're new to the show, a warm welcome to you. If you've been with me before, in the prior 39 episodes, this is episode number 40. I am super glad to have you back. Excited about tonight. Glad that we're in a new year. And soon we're going to be turning our attention to a conversation that I had the other day with a guy named Jeff, the 420 chef. I spoke with Jeff at length about the subject of marijuana, cannabis, CBD, THC, as it relates to food. That's what it is that he does. But before we turn it over to that, here we are in a new year. I'm actually glad that the last one is over, and I'm ready to start a new one. I certainly ate well in 2018, so I'll have to compensate for that somewhat, which we all do, by the way, in January, don't we? Like, that's the thing I always recall about January's is how crowded it got at the gym. It got crowded at the gym in January, but then again, that really only lasted, I think, to me, that lasted for about a month. Like, I knew I was going to be annoyed for about a month, because there were all types of people showing up that were taking up a lot of space. But, I mean, like 30 days, basically. 31 days is the under-over. Most of them are out of there, and those New Year's resolutions quashed usually by the end of January. Anyway, aside from that, though, great to be alive and happy and healthy in 2019. So it's also the time that you see a lot of, you thought they were year-end lists, but I picked up from Eater, which I will refer to periodically, and I have, an article called literally Every Single Food Trend Predicted to Take Over 2019. I'm not going to go. It's unbelievable. It's all it is a compilation. I mean, they admit that it's not as if these kind of food trends are actually happening. It's just a collection of every possible prediction by anyone with any connection to the food business, whether it's going to be real publications like, New York Times or whether it's from Pinterest groups or Uber Eats, whatever. So the sources are all over the place, but it's an extensive list of all the projected food trends, and I find some of them actually laughably dumb. Yet, some of them are completely legit. Let's just go through some of the every single food trend predicted to take over 2019. Mushrooms, according to the New York Times, by the way. I don't know. Mushrooms have been around a long time. I suppose. Am I seeing more mushrooms? I don't know. I'm seeing different types of mushrooms. Okay, infusions. Infusions such as ginger water and CBD. So CBD is interesting because that's what we're going to talk to Jeff about. And for those who aren't sure, CBD, cannabidiol, CBD, cannabis compound that has significant medical benefits according to those who promote CBD, but doesn't make people feel particularly stoned. It can actually counteract the psychoactivity of THC. So anyway, but the fact is we're seeing a ton of that, so we're going to get to that later when we talk to Jeff. Oat milk and pea milk. Boy, does that sound disgusting. Bread, that can't be a new trend. Peganism, Peganism. A cross between paleo and vegan. I mean, this makes no sense. Considering that the vegans are eating not meat, and the paleo people are eating any kind of protein, lean protein they can get their hands on. So veganism can't be a thing, ever, or I'm a vegan, because I eat meat and vegetables. Grazing, tables don't care, dinners, oxtail. So oxtail, literally, from the very end of the cow, is that going to become a thing according to Pinterest? I haven't seen a ton of it, but then again, I got to say, was watching Matty Matheson on Viceland the other day. If you don't know Matty, he is, in my estimation, the most entertaining guy in the world of food television right now, with a show or two over on Vice. Anyway, he was making a bolognese sauce, which is a meat sauce derived from Bologna, and one of the ingredients in it, in fact, was oxtail. Jam, jelly, marmalade, those feel to me like they've been around a long time. But someone is saying they are trending. Really, I'm not really seeing that. Clean eating, well, that certainly is happening this time of year. Gut-healthy foods, also known as fermented foods, such as kombucha and kimchi. Well, I love saying kombucha. And kimchi, yes, I've been saying, or at least on a dozen episodes, how Korean is a real trend, Korean food in this country, and kimchi is their fermented cabbage, which is not only, delicious for those of us that appreciate that kind of, the taste that comes along with fermentation, but actually quite good for your digestion, because it is, what do they call it? Like probiotic, like a natural probiotic. Plant-based foods. Well, I guess this is pretty much foods that come out of the ground. Smoothie bowl, seitan. Seitan is one of you. I've had seitan. It kind of is like pressed soy protein. And the seitan that I had was devilishly good. Seitan, I guess you do see more of it. It's kind of like the meat substitute that you would find in a vegan-vegetarian operation, I would say. And, there's that. Soy, though, I don't know. Some people like soy, some people don't like soy. Because those who don't say that it can give you premature breasts. And no matter who you are and what age you are, there's nothing good about premature and breasts. Rolled ice cream, I don't know. Keto, a lot of people on the keto diet. So, yeah, bulgur. How is bulgur trending? I don't get that. It's an ancient grain. I mean, if that's trending, it's thousands of years old. Pumpkin, farro. I actually like farro myself. I haven't seen a ton of it around, but you do see it more often, I suppose. It's kind of that, it's a wheat base, so it's like it's pasta. Actually, it looks like rice, but it's pasta. Turmeric, yeah, we're seeing that everywhere. Tofu, we talked about. Honey, well, I mean, honey's been around, but I guess you're seeing high-end, like Manuka honey. We see a lot more of that. That's true. Agave bee pollen, shelf-stable fats, yeah. People are eating their fats, as long as they're the good fats. Your avocados, your olive oils. Frozen desserts, seafood snacks, fancy snacks, transparent brands by Middle Eastern, African spices. Well, if that includes Berbere from Ethiopia, I only mention it on every other podcast. If you haven't had it, my friends, and you want to amp up, let's say, some chicken wings, you get yourself some Berbere, B-E-R-B-E-R-E, in any place. I don't know, I think they sell it in like a lot of supermarkets, but I mean, it's also not hard to find online. I love...
See you later.
The Berbere. Oh, see you later. It's a blend, the Berbere, of like 10 or 12 different spices, and it's spicy, slightly spicy, but oh my God, aromatically fantastical. Orange wine. I'm going to agree with that. It's not wine that comes from orange. Rather, that refers to the color of the wine, and some of it's not good, as with everything. Some of it is great. If you're interested in trying some outstanding orange wine, there's a producer named Paolo Bea. I guess it's B-E-A, out of Italia, Umbria. And Paolo Bea makes an orange wine that is, I think, is the best wine that I had in the last year. Drinking collagen, that sounds disgusting. Coffee, beer, no, not for me either. Insect protein, yes, seeing more of that. Chlorophyll latte, why? I don't understand chlorophyll latte. that's a thing? I mean, chlorophyll, like, don't you just use that to kind of knock somebody? It's just, it's green and like all I could think of is like chlorine. Why would that go with coffee? Adaptogens, I don't know what they are, and I don't want them because I don't want anything that sounds like science or chemicals or androgens or hydrogens in my food. Celtus is the new kale. I don't know what Celtus is. Healthy hot brewed coffee. This one struck me as being particularly dumb since I've been having hot brewed coffee now since I started drinking coffee. But I guess they must mean in contrast to cold brew. Lager, again, beer's been here for thousands and thousands of years, but I guess people are now drinking it instead of their IPAs, regional food, stable products, blockchain, pop-ups, alternatives, sour food, seed butter. I don't feel like I've seen a lot of seed butter, but I don't like the idea of it. You know what I'm saying? Hey, can you just tell me what kind of condiments you have? Well, we have seed butter. No, I don't think seed butter is, it just doesn't sound healthy to me. Tea bars, dietitians, yeah, mobile payments, chef-driven, class 6, sustainability. Sustainability, yeah, you know what? Sustainable fish happens when you don't eat fish. Sustainable seafood, that is. Kids' meals, drinks that are sleep aids, healthy breakfast. Mezcal. Talked about it a lot, but definitely. Mezcal, kind of, I suppose, the smoky cousin to tequila, both from the agave plant, and mezcal certainly is seeing at a whole host more of cocktail bars. It's very popular, and I'm a lover. I'm a fan of that. Chickpeas. Sure. I like a good chickpea. Take some of that Burberry powder I mentioned. Hit up a can of chickpeas with it. Stick it in a toaster oven until they get a little crunchy, and that's a blow-away good snack. Let's see, what else? Restaurants, Japanese herbs, Aperol spritz. Okay, nothing wrong with that. Seen that. Avocado toast. No kidding. That's been a trend for 5-10 years. Put the recipe in my cookbook, for God's sake. And somebody said, how can you put a recipe in for avocado? Well, I was so ahead of my time, but I mean, whatever. Banh mi, the Vietnamese sandwich. I'm going to tell you, those of you who know, and those of you who haven't, get your hands on a banh mi. It's one of the top 10 sandwiches in the world, in my humble estimation. Mushroom drinks. No, thank you. I'll have mine sauteed. I don't need to drink liquefied mushrooms. Melting pot cuisine. Frankly, we're seeing a melting pot cuisine, which I guess refers to cuisine that's made up of multiple cultures. If you live in a place fortunate enough like I do, you're going to do that. I had for lunch, by the way. Here's what I had, because I put together what I had available. I had some roast pork left over from last night. Just regular old continental roast pork, salt and maybe some rosemary. And I had some, speaking of it, I had some kimchi in the refrigerator, and I had a tortilla. So guess what? Mexican tortilla, Korean kimchi, and roast pork, American style, went on my tortilla. Multicultural melting pot cuisine. There you go. And, all right. Well, I think you get the idea. There's a ton of stuff. Half of these make sense. Half of them we've seen. Half of them are just kind of silly. But, at the very end of the list, I mean, like coffee really is on the list. That's a trend now. I mean, for God's sake. I'll tell you what the trend is. The trend is not coffee. It's cannabis. So the last item on the list from the New York Times, THC food, which we're going to, talk about tonight. Because undoubtedly you're aware that, and it's a subject that's been fascinating to me, that there's a lot more cannabis. There's 10 states, in fact, most recently Michigan, that have legalized marijuana for medical and for recreational use. There's 23, or at least, that have made it legal for medicinal use. New York right now, in January of 2019, the mayor of New York City and the governor of New York State is talking about both making it legal. Fascinating subject, and frankly, a subject that not a ton of people have a great expertise in. Now, I've had already on the podcast a couple of guests. One was a guy named Joe Caruso. He actually makes products on the West Coast where he infuses creams and stuff like that with CBD, which is the non-psychoactive part of the cannabis plant. And then I had on Ron Silver, a chef from right here in New York of Bubby's in Tribeca, who makes a product. It's called Azuka, and his product is basically THC and CBD infused syrups and sugars that people can use to put in food. And so with that, let me put some noise back on here because I like to have some. Ah, baby, that means we're getting to the part of the show where I'm going to have a conversation with Jeff, the 420 chef, and let's start that up right here, and then I will come back. The famed 420 chef, how are you, Jeff?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you? Thank you for having me on the show.
Oh, super glad that you're on it. Appreciate your time. Where are we speaking to you from? Where have we found you?
I'm in LA right now.
Perfect. Are you, I always like to start at the beginning. Are you an LA product? Did you grow up there? Or if not, where did you grow up?
No, I actually did grow up in LA. Then I moved to New York when I was 19, spent 32 years there.
Wow.
And then I moved back here about 3.5 years ago to do this full time.
Oh, wow, that's fantastic. Okay, yeah. So let's start at the beginning for people. What you're doing full time. Explain to the folks what you do full time.
So I'm a cannabis chef. I'm also the inventor of a product called Free Leaf that's going to be launching in September, maybe even earlier of next year, which is odorless cannabis for the discreet smoker and culinary cannabis that's tasteless, so you can make your own edibles at home without any taste whatsoever. And yeah. So that's pretty much what I'm spending all my time on now is the culinary aspects and building up Free Leaf.
Now, so I guess the first question is: you had spent some time. You grew up there. You spent a whole bunch of time here in New York before you went into this full time. Were you in the chef business?
Not at all. I was not in the culinary space at all. I was a marketer in the fashion industry. Actually, I've been doing that for 25 years.
Oh wow!
But evidently, I was a very good cook. People loved what I did, and when a couple friends of ours got recommendations for cannabis because they were ill, they had asked me to make one of these cookies I'm very famous for in my little circle of friends here, and they wanted to know if I could make it with cannabis. So I said sure. And I started cooking with cannabis, but at that time, when I first started, the biggest issues were taste. It had this really danky, like herbaceous taste that was almost impossible to get out. And the other thing was dosing, like how potent are your edibles going to be? So I took literally about a year and a half to just focus on taking out the taste and developing, my potency formula. And once I did that, then I came out as Chef the 420 Chef and got written up by the Daily Beast as the Julia Child of the Week, started teaching all these other chefs what I do, and I literally became a chef by doing this, teaching other big chefs what to do, learning from them, and then pretty much learning how to do what I do now. So yeah, it's been pretty cool.
I mean, I love that story for a variety of reasons, not the least of which is that you had a career, as I did in a different business, and eventually transitioned into doing this. Full time. That's why you moved back out there, because that's where I guess the product is legal. I mean, is that really?
Yeah, I mean it's legal here now, and they were legalizing. I was already flying back and forth a lot between New York and California, New York and Colorado, New York and Washington, and I realized that I was spending more time on the West Coast than I was on the East Coast, and said, you know what, this is really turning into something. It's going to be a huge business. Let me get in now. Let me figure out how to do something that nobody else has done, and pretty much reinvented myself to be able to do this. And this is literally my calling. This is my purpose. No one has ever come up with tasteless cannabis for edibles before. I'm talking about cannabis flower, like the bud is tasteless. And then odorless, that's also never been done before. And I have 2 patents pending now, on the product. But it took a long time to get here, but I believe that the entire road up to getting here is exactly what I needed so that I could, build my business. I understand marketing. I was a big marketer in the fashion industry. And I was able to take everything I learned, in those past, previous 25 years of working and put it to work here to build this brand.
I think that's the greatest story. And like I said, for a variety of reasons. First, because you found your calling. And second, because the business of cannabis and CBD is explosive to the point where I I've heard people say it may end up being the fastest growth industry essentially for the rest of our lives.
Yeah, I definitely believe that, especially where this is going now. The cool thing is, we just got 3 licenses here in West Hollywood for lounges, for Valor Lounge, and there's going to be 7 other licensees that are opening up cannabis restaurants, cannabis lounges, things that never existed before. And that's just another extension of the business that, just makes a lot of sense. So, you've got a business that's already doing, in the tens of millions of dollars in each state, that it's in. And as it gets bigger, you have all these new ancillary businesses that are popping up around it as people are realizing that there's so much you can do with it. So whether it's CBD or THC or a combination of the two, you're going to have everything. I mean, it's really about bringing cannabis into our lifestyle in every aspect of it and not just, stoners and stoner culture. So now we have fine dining. And we have, odorless cannabis for the discreet smoker. Now we have lounges opening up and restaurants opening up. So there's a lot of stuff that's, coming into play now with cannabis that had never been done in the past.
Well,
not even in Amsterdam.
Here's what's interesting, particularly to me, because I will refer to just last evening, right? I have a little dinner party here myself. I have over one of my very best friends forever, and he happens to be a medical doctor that specializes in disease, right? So the conversation eventually turns into cannabis CBD. I say and this is shocking to me, and he's brilliant, and I love him. He says, "What's CBD?" And I said, "You got to be kidding me." And so here's what I want to do to start off, okay? For all the people that are listening, and my show, all you can eat is predominantly, obviously, about what I call, deliciousness, having to do with whether you cook it or whether you eat it or whatever. But what I want to at least, what occurred to me in my conversation last night was how much so few people know. In other words, you're an expert. Californians, those in Nevada, Oregon, Washington, et cetera, places where it's kind of legal and popular, get the picture. They're turning, both the mayor of New York City and the governor are talking about January, meaning like next week. They're talking about legalization here. But I want to just start with kind of very preliminary kind of primer for people. Explain kind of the fundamental difference, if you will, between cannabis and THC and CBD, but at least between THC and CBD. Help people understand.
Yeah, so you have 2 sister plants. You have cannabis and then you have hemp. Cannabis has a high THC level, which is tetrahydrocannabinol, which is basically what gets you high. But it can also have a secondary cannabinoid called CBD. Not every strain has CBD or detectable CBD, but there's certain strains, CBD, which is called cannabidiol. There's certain strains that have that CBD. The CBD is a highly effective medicinal compound that's non-psychoactive. Right. So, they just passed the Farm Bill. The president just signed the Farm Bill. Now all of a sudden that's making CBD legal. The federal government, up until just when he signed that bill, and even now, if you ask the DEA, they still feel that anything that was derived from cannabis or hemp, including CBD, should be prohibited and outlawed. However, since they signed the Farm Bill and basically have now legalized hemp and legalized the compounds that come from hemp, CBD is a very rich compound found in hemp. So you can see a lot of companies out there now. They've been out there for a while now, putting CBD products on the market because even the FDA is trying to figure out, how to work CBD into their framework. So the DEA is like years behind everybody else. They're trying to make it seem like it's so bad and so illegal, but it's not. And now CBD, the government's talking out of 2 sides of their mouth, saying CBD is legal or not legal. So a lot of people who are in the business and putting out some high quality CBD are just making sure that it doesn't have THC in it, because if there's anything more than 0.03% THC, then it becomes cannabis derived CBD that has to be sold in a dispensary. But if you want to be able to sell CBD across state lines, then it's got to be CBD sourced from a local, like a U.S. grown hemp plant, and it has to have less than 0.03% THC. So, there's a lot of companies that are working on that now, and you're hearing about it from all the big companies are getting into it now. But CBD is a highly effective medicinal compound found in the hemp plant as well as cannabis or marijuana.
All right. So now you've seen plenty of research. When we talk about some of the potential medicinal benefits of CBD, what are some of the most commonly known, or at least commonly accepted uses of CBD for medicinal purposes?
Yeah, and by the way, you can look up a list online. So this is not to be, all of them. I saw a list of over 45 different elements, that it helps. But I can tell you anecdotally, and this is obviously, I can't say that it actually does this, only because, we haven't been able to research it in the U.S. However, they've been researching in Israel and in Spain and in France,
right,
particularly. And they have proven in those countries that CBD helps Crohn's, pain relief, migraines. Those are just three. Menstrual cramps.
Right.
Those are just three or four of the things that are, ailments that a lot of people have that CBD can help. In addition, they're finding that THC and CBD combined together can help shrink tumors and kill cancer cells. And that was discovered in Spain by Dr. Christina Sanchez. So there's a lot of stuff out there that you can find online. I'm basically giving you, all this on one foot, so to speak.
Sure.
But if you look online to see, what the benefits are, it's unbelievable. They talk about CBD for Alzheimer's. They talk about CBD for ulcers. I mean, I can tell you for a fact, for me, I do a combination. I used to take Prilosec and Nexium for years.
Mm-hmm.
Then a study came out that if you take too much of those, it can cause plaque, on the brain, and you can get Alzheimer's or, dementia from taking too much of those. They call, I think, proton inhibitors for your stomach. So I was, beside myself because I really have to take something because I have terrible something called GERD, which
gastrointestinal reflux.
Yeah, and many people have that. And I said, I don't want to take this anymore. It was in tremendous amount of pain for about a week and a half. And I said, you know what? Let me see if CBD actually works. So I started doing CBD drops, and it worked really well. But it didn't work totally well. And I was just one day eating an apple, and it turns out that, and this is just for me, but you guys can try it at home if you want. I promise it works for me. If you do CBD tincture or drops, and you do an apple, my favorites are the Fuji apple, you will not have GERD. It will take away your heartburn, and you will not have GERD.
That's unbelievable. Okay, now there are two things here. That occur to me. One is that you mentioned the word tincture, and two is that am I right that you actually got into this, and you may have even referenced this before, because people who really needed the medicinal benefits of it didn't want to smoke it, and they knew that you were a cook, right? That's what you said. You got into this because...
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, and I'll tell you, some of the things that we learned. So when you medicate with edibles, you're not going to cure cancer, right? But you are going to help that person live a better quality of life.
Right.
And the edibles that we were making were, at that time, they were dosed all over the place. Now they're very meticulously dosed to be between 5 and 10 milligrams per serving of THC. And also we put about 5 milligrams of CBD into most of our edibles as well, so you get a combination of both. But dosing was a really big issue, and when you're treating somebody with an illness, they need much higher doses in their bloodstream. So a lot of people will vape, or they'll smoke, or they'll do a medicinal edible, which has a much higher THC content. But again, the THC you're going to get in edible it's going to help you tremendously for pain relief. It'll help you for anxiety, for different things like that. However, when you're talking about serious disease, I think that, from what I saw from the people that I've worked with, the best thing that it did was give them a really great way to add cannabis into their life to make their quality of life better. Because they didn't want to know they were medicating. They didn't want to taste it. They wanted to have a cookie, but the cookie made them feel great. So, that's one of the things that edibles can do.
Well, okay. Now you mentioned. Oh, by the way, just quickly, what's a tincture?
A tincture is when you extract the cannabinoids into either a vegetable glycerin or alcohol or oil. So you can make either an oil tincture, a vegetable glycerin tincture, or an alcohol tincture. And it's the cannabinoids in a drop form. You put the drops under your tongue, and that's pretty much it. And then you feel it within about much quicker than you would feel it doing edible. Edibles take about 2 hours to kick in. Tinctures can take, 20 minutes to an hour.
All right. Now, when you do your cooking, are you using CBD predominantly or THC or a mixture? Like, how do you decide what you're cooking?
I use both.
Okay.
I use both. THC, obviously, because people want the psychoactive effect. A lot of people don't want the psychoactive effect. So, we just do CBD. For Christmas, actually, we did a little thing yesterday where I made cannabis-infused, CBD-infused baklava. No THC, just CBD. So you can do stuff like that where if you don't want the THC, you just, find yourself, a nice CBD oil or a CBD tincture, or there's different things on the market now that you could use in a recipe. And the CBD honey out there, that's what I use for the baklava. And you can make your foods infused with CBD if you want. You cook it the same way, just replace CBD honey for regular honey.
All right. Now, you also bring up one of the most important points in all of this, which is the idea of dosing. And the reason that that's super important, again, for those who kind of don't know, is that one of the things that historically was complicated and challenging about the edible business was that before there was any kind of monitoring or regulation or recognition, that people would eat, their pot brownie, would feel nothing, and then 30 minutes later eat more until the point where it all kind of kicked in because it takes a while. So talk about the importance of dosing and how you kind of deal with that.
Yeah, it's really the most important thing. So first of all, people have to understand that in the case of cannabis, less is more. So, a lot of people like to get super stoned. That's fine. You can get super stoned, smoke as much as you want. That's your business. When it comes to edibles, you want to make your own edibles and make them super potent. That's your own business. However, we've found out that the standard single dose per person that will make you feel like you had about 2.5 to 3 glasses of wine on an empty stomach is 10 milligrams of THC. So if you're going to make, for example, cookies, you want to share those cookies, you can choose to either make them, let's say 10 milligrams each, so somebody can maybe only have one cookie, or you can dose those cookies in something called microdosing, where each cookie is, let's say, 2 milligrams. Mm-hmm. And if each cookie is 2 milligrams, you can eat as many as you want to get up to that place where you want to get. So let's say my sweet spot is 10 milligrams. I know that I can have 5 cookies, right? So, and I love my cookies. I'll probably eat 5 in a sitting anyway. So, that way I know that, I'm not going to be overdoing it when it comes to dosing. On the other side of it, you also have to be aware of the fact that, not here in California anymore or, any of the legal states, but in a lot of states they're selling edibles that are very highly dosed, where you can only have, for example, a small bite of a brownie or a small bite of a cookie or maybe half of a gum, because they're dosed very highly. And I'm sure, you know people, or maybe even yourself, who have had a really bad experience with edibles. It's because they weren't dosed properly, and people don't realize that edibles take about 2 hours to kick in. So you're not going to feel it the same way when you're smoking. When you're smoking, you feel it within, a few minutes, and you're good to go. With edibles, it takes a long time for your body to metabolize the food and the cannabis. So, if it takes 2 hours and you don't think you feel anything, it's like, oh no, all of a sudden 2.5 hours later, you're on the couch like a couch potato, and you can't move because you've taken too much. So give yourself time and understand that the typical dose is 10 milligrams, and that's at a maximum. Most people do really great with 5 milligrams.
Right. Okay. Very important. Now, let's segue from there into the subject of deliciousness. One of the things I will tell people that Jeff the 420 chef is known for is the lesson essentially in how to make cannabis butter or oil that is that's light, that essentially minimizes or eliminates that kind of funky, what you call the dank flavor that's normally.
The herbaceous. Yeah, it's a very herbaceous taste.
Right. Okay. So the question here, Jeff, is I think you mentioned before that you spent like 1.5 years figuring out how to do it. So what you're saying is that you have a method that essentially kind of minimizes or eliminates that kind of crummy taste that people would normally associate with kind of like eating product that's made with weed.
Right. So, I came up with a process to make light tasting canna butter and canna oil. I also came up with a process to make tasteless canna butter and canna oil. The tasteless is the one that I don't share with this patented, and that's the one that we're going to be selling products in stores probably in the next 6 to 8 months.
Right.
But the light tasting you can make at home. And the recipe's in my cookbook. It's called the 420 Gourmet. And it teaches you that the taste that you're experiencing is because the cannabis that you're working with has a lot of compounds in it that are responsible for that taste. And those compounds can be taken out without affecting the potency of the cannabis. So we clean our cannabis. Right. So it's a cleaning process. It takes a while. It takes about 3 days to do it properly. But if you do it properly and you follow how to do it in the cookbook, then you'll have a light tasting oil or butter that if you use that according to the recipes, you're only using that as a small component in your recipe. There's a very good chance you won't taste any cannabis, or you'll taste a very little. It'll be a very, very light cannabis taste, which actually matches with a lot of the foods. So everything in that cookbook, every recipe in that cookbook, the cannabis taste that's residual to the light taste, which is again very, very light. It complements the dishes.
I think what's important here is this. I've actually seen your YouTube video on how to make the light tasting, kind of canna butter and canna oil. So that's great. We're going to tell people, where to go check that out. But here's my question for you. Now, I'm a legit kind of, cook, and having seen it, my instinct is, geez, I am known for a lot of taste with the fewest ingredients and the least effort. I don't feel like actually going through that process and buying, those kind of tools. Is it easy for people these days to kind of buy already pre-made canna butter and oil and or sugar, or the kind of stuff that you need to actually make it without having to kind of decarboxylate your own weed?
It depends where you live. Here in California, you can buy cannabis like olive oil, for example, but it's very low quality. I have not found any oil yet on the market that at least meets my standard, for cooking oils. Although, there is one that's kind of there. But, other than that, I haven't found anything out there. That's what becoming our own oils, actually. But, it's best if you live in a place where you cannot get canna oil or canna butter other than buying it from somebody who's making it in their basement to do it yourself.
Right.
Because you don't know all the impurities that are going into it when you buy it. People have brought me so many different types of butters and oils, they wanted me to check out, and they're just disgusting. And, if you think about, if a plant is just like a fruit or vegetable, if you're going to take your cannabis and throw it into a crock pot and make canna butter with it without cleaning it,
right,
whatever's in that cannabis is going into your butter or your oil.
Right.
And that's then going into your body, and that's what causes a lot of that taste. So I really, can't stress enough that the real backbone to a really great tasting cannabis-infused edible is to clean your cannabis first.
Yeah.
If you're working with the plant. I work with the plant. A lot of chefs work with distillate. I don't. I prefer to work with the plant because I think for me it's a lot more authentic. And I go, I'm very strain specific as well. So I can tell you that, this is going to be more of an uplifting feeling, and this might be more of a bedtime, edible for you. So it really depends on, each individual chef or cook. So my suggestion is work with clean cannabis and clean it yourself.
All right, I got that picture, but here let me present you another challenge, which is that basically we talked about the importance of understanding dosing and dosage and how to do that. And I know, and I will tell people again, I'll remind people that when they want to kind of compute, dosages, they can go to your website because you have kind of like a calculator right there. But therein, Jeff, lies the challenge, right? If I had a flower, I don't have any clue what the THC level is. What do we do in those cases?
Right. So, again, if you live in a state like California, Colorado, you know what the percentage of THC is because that's part of our mandated laws now. But if you're buying, for example, from, somebody, delivery service in New Jersey, for example,
right,
and they may not be that sophisticated yet with potency levels of the actual flower. So then my only suggestion is to estimate it, to best way for me to try to estimate it is either to smoke it and try it yourself, which is a lot of fun to do.
Right.
If you don't want to do that, it's very, very hard to estimate. Cannabis can range from 15%, actually lower, like 10 to 12%, up to 28, up to 35% I've seen. So it really depends, how potent your starting material is. If you think you're mid-range, whatever, then I would just put the 20% number into the calculator. So you mentioned the calculator on my website. It's pretty easy and straightforward. But the most important thing you have to know is what is the potency level of your cannabis. And if you don't know it, unfortunately, you're going to have to give your best guesstimate.
Yeah, got the picture. All right, let's move into deliciousness. Also on your site, which is jeffthe420chef.com, are a series of recipes, right? So historically, Jeff, the first thing people would think of, would associate with pot is the brownie, and I kind of understand that. And yet, what you've done here is everything from kind of fish tacos to to burgers, to hummus and guacamole. What are some of so two things, Jeff. First, what are some of the great, kind of your favorite recipes to make using whatever product you choose? Let's start with that. What are some of the dishes that you make these days that are delicious and popular using your infused butters and oils?
Yeah, I'll tell you. It's kind of seasonal. Like in the summertime, for example, my dual color watermelon gazpacho was really popular.
Nice.
That was the one thing that everybody had asked for at every single event that I'd ever done. Everybody wants my hazy Thai wings, which is basically. If you've ever had Pok wings out in Portland, they're Thai street wings. I pretty much figured out the recipe, and what I like to say, cannabinized it. And so now they're infused, so each wing is, let's say, 1.5 milligrams. You can have 3 or 4 wings and, just have a really great time. So that's really another popular one. And my toffee chip cookies are very popular. So basically it is a toffee-based chocolate chip cookie with English toffee and chocolate chips inside as well.
And is it fair to assume, as a cook, that there are certain oils, or not? Are there certain oils that kind of are better adapted to the cannabis than others? Like, is it olive good, avocado, canola? Like, what do you do?
I mean, pretty much any cooking oil is really good. I always tell people, do not use the unhealthy oils. Like, I'll never use canola oil, for example. But, olive oil, avocado oil, grass-fed butter is really good. I tend not to, use any other butter but grass-fed butter. So any healthy oil is good. And you can really infuse any oil you want. Talk about in the cookbook. I've infused walnut oil. So it really depends on, the type of cuisine that you're making as to what you want to infuse. But if you know how to infuse, once you learn how to infuse, you can pretty much infuse any fat you want. Right. You can even infuse bacon grease. I've done that too.
Oh, I thank you for that kosher notion. And it reminds me though, when we talk about different strains, two things. First of all, when we talk about different strains, like, are there certain strains of flower or weed that match well? And you don't even have to tell me which ones. I mean, I assume you can kind of maybe discuss it in the book or online. But are there certain strains that lend themselves to certain types of foods?
It's an interesting question. The strain pairing, so to speak, a lot of that is done based on the taste of the cannabis, which you won't have in my edibles, right? And the cannabis taste that most people taste in the edibles is pretty much similar all across the board, with the exception of, if you use my stuff. However, I'll take that question and answer it on a different level. There are different strains and different harvest times that will impart different effects. So if I'm using a flower or bud that's been harvested late in the process, or what we sometimes will call an indica, because, it's a plant that might have indica characteristics and features, as well as being harvested, when the trichomes, for example, are ripe. Then I can tell you that any cookies or any brownies or any wings or anything I make is going to put you to sleep in about 2 hours.
Wow. Right.
On the other hand, if I'm looking for a strain that's a little more uplifting, then there are strains out there that have been harvested at a different point in time, earlier in the harvest cycle, and I can tell that, and I can say this will make you feel more focused and creative and be more uplifting. So strains to pair, flavor-wise, not on my side.
Got it.
But strains to pair with experience, yes.
That's a great answer. Thank you for that. And what about cocktails? I'm seeing more and more that there's kind of an infusion of cannabis into cocktails. Is that the case?
Yeah. There's a cannabis-infused cocktails. We do them all the time. They're called Cannamocktail. At least that's what we call them. Mm-hmm. You can infuse them with tinctures, right? So if you buy a tincture, either THC or CBD, a few drops in the drink, that'll infuse that. I like to do a vegetable glycerin tincture for sweet drinks. So, you pick it. I mean, there's no alcohol in our drinks, by the way. So, you could do a spritzer, where you can use, either if you live, let's say in California, you can buy an actual infused, like lemon lime soda and use that as the base for a spritzer. Or if you do not live in a state where you can buy cannabis infused, sodas, you can actually make your own. All you have to do is infuse, vegetable glycerin, use that as sort of like a syrup sweetener, then you have cannabis infused syrup, and then put that into a couple of drinks. And we actually have a couple of videos up on the Cannabis Cooking channel that show how to do drinks. I did those with a friend of mine, I think, with Chef Matt. And it's a lot of fun to just see all the different things you can do with cannabis, even in drinks now.
Do you and now to explain to people that you in addition to the book and the video and the cooking and the products, you will also teach classes and even throw I'm assuming kind of dinners. What is that the case? What's the full range of kind of the experience out there?
Oh, so I mean, I guess I should start by telling you that our mission is making cooking with cannabis simple and easy for everyone.
Good.
That's what it's all about. And the other part of our mission is making the cannabis experience comfortable for everyone. So everything that we do fits into that motto. So, to make cooking with cannabis simple and easy, right, you want to be able to give everyone an experience that they feel really comfortable with, right, and they feel really comfortable about. So, and you can do that with the way that we're doing it. So, for example, the classes that we teach, we're teaching classes so that you will feel comfortable not only cooking for yourself, but cooking for others, right? So we do that. We do private classes more than we do public now because it's just a lot easier to do private classes. Mm-hmm. On the other side of it, we also do cannabis-infused dinners. A lot of them are, like celebrity-based dinners at this point, only because, we really want to get the word out there for what we're doing so that people can understand that, there's a lot more you can do with edibles than just, buy an infused cookie and get yourself high. So we do that. It's more for PR, and you can see a lot of the stuff we do online on my Instagram, actually, okay. Which is a lot of fun. But, it's really building up cannabis as something really cool and fun and also healthy and medicinal to bring into our lifestyle now that we didn't have before.
I think it's great, and I think we should remind people that the use of it goes back thousands and thousands of years. Oh, yeah. And the thing that's crazy for me, as someone who, grew up when weed was kind of like, super popular, is that even when I go to, I was in LA maybe 3 weeks ago. I went from there to Las Vegas, Nevada, right? So I stopped into MedMen over in your downtown where you are, and even though it's completely legal, believe it or not, there is still some stigma in the recesses of my mind in using it because of the programming. It's just so strange to me. So this is all a very super happy development. Let's put it that way. And so you
yeah, I mean. It was vilified in 1937. Did you know that before 1937, most people had tincture of cannabis in their medicine cabinets to help with any ailment, from cough to aches and pain?
I actually do have on my very computer screen right now a picture of a kind of an anti-cough a cough suppressant product that actually has cannabis in it. So yeah, I kind of knew it, but. Yeah. But the whole thing is so nuts at this point. But I'm glad that the tide has turned, and I'm eager to on my next trip. On my next trip out to the West Coast, I'm gonna find you so that we can in person explore some of the potential of using both whether it's the THC or the CBD in delicious food. Jeff? One thing.
We'll cut out in the summer. We're opening up our lounge, and we're opening up the first cannabis lounge. As far as I know, it's the first edibles infusion lounge in the world in West Hollywood. It's going to be called Budberry, probably the 420 Gourmet after my cookbook. We're planning on opening it up in the summer. So come there. You'll be able to try a whole bunch of stuff.
No joke. I come out to LA a couple times a year anyway. So I'm going to be there with you on this. I promise you that. I'm looking forward to that. I don't want to put you on the spot here, but like, where did the origin of 420 come from? Do we know?
It's funny. There's two different stories. One story is that it was the time that the kids got out of school. After the kids would get out of school, they would go like behind the bleachers and smoke at 420. So that was the time they got out of school. Right. But then on top of that, the second part of that story was, so every time the police got a call to bust somebody, they said 420 in progress, and that was what it was. So we took that and we decided, instead of vilifying it, to glorify it and make it into,
I like it. All right. Well, but before we depart here, please tell everybody the best places to access you, whether it be website, YouTube, Instagram. Where do people book? Tell people about Jeff the 420 Chef.
Sure. So, the best place to see what we do on a daily basis is our Instagram. We've got a really robust Instagram with a lot of great followers, and there's a lot of engagement. We do some really fun things that you probably have never seen before, especially with cannabis, but we're creating things that you've never seen before. That's on Instagram, Jeff the 420 Chef. You can also go to my website, jeffthe420chef.com. That's a great place to see some recipes, as well as you can check out our calculator. It's free of charge. You can try to figure out how, using that calculator, you can figure out your approximate dosing per serving of what you're making. You can also buy my cookbook, either through the website and sign the ones that we sell through our website, or you can get it on Amazon. It's called the 420 Gourmet, the elevated art of cannabis cuisine. Or you can, hit us up on Twitter, or you can check out all the videos we have on the CannabisCookingChannel.com and .tv.
Oh, look at you. Very professional pronouncement of all of the places. Obviously, you spent some time in the marketing and PR business. God bless. I love that.
I've been doing this for a long time. I've been, thank God I've been on a lot of TV shows and, podcasts and stuff, and it's a lot of fun. I love getting everybody else involved, and I love, when people come in, they're just like, I saw this on a certain show. Can you make this for our dinner party and stuff? And, it's really great when you can take everything that you do, every form of media, and you can transfer something living for somebody. People see my Instagram, and all of a sudden I get a DM, say, hey, can you come by, do a wake and bake for me and 10 friends, based on the post that I put up on, on Instagram about a special breakfast I did for a wake and bake. So it's a lot of fun. We're very approachable. You can always write to us. I pretty much answer every email, every DM, everything that comes across. Me or my team, but it's usually me. So yeah, definitely, don't be shy.
Excellent. Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen, our friend Jeff, the 420 Chef. Jeff, thank you for doing that. Pleasure to have you on the podcast, and I seriously am looking forward to finding you in person at that lounge when it opens up next year in Los Angeles, West Hollywood, California.
Yeah, it's in West Hollywood. It's Los Angeles. Super exciting. Definitely, keep posted. We're putting things up on our Instagram as well, keeping everyone posted about the lounge. We're just really excited and very proud that we just got our licenses. So now it's like, all right, what's next? And how do we bring this to life sooner than later?
Beautiful. Thank you again for being on the podcast. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on your show.
Right. Well, that's what I'm talking about right there. Jeff, the 420 Chef. Could not help but notice in listening back, since obviously I spoke to Jeff this past week, that he mentioned grass-fed butter. It certainly has a new way of looking at grass-fed butter. I like it. I think it's interesting. I think what he's doing is fascinating. I think, I started off the show talking about all the different trends, and trends by definition come and go. But this one here, this one's not going anywhere fast. This is coming, and it's coming stronger, and it's still early in the overall development of the kind of cannabis business. But it's fascinating, and I think incredibly positive and productive. At the very beginning, at the very least, for people whose lives are being measurably improved by using the product that we're talking about, by using the cannabis. I've seen evidence of it. We've all seen stories, and now again, it would be wrong to kind of overplay the promise. I think it's premature to come to too many medical conclusions until more is done. But what is inarguable is that people's lives have been immeasurably improved. And I'm talking about people that have had cancer and a loss of appetite, and all of a sudden now they have an appetite and have a greater joy. I'm talking about people that have had seizures which have stopped because of using CBD medicinally, and it goes on and on and on. So without even overpromising, there are clear and obvious benefits. And I take another position as well too. I'm like most of Americans that favor the legalization. It makes no sense to me, especially something that's been used and grown for thousands and thousands of years, that this should carry any type of penalty, not the least of which is on a level. It still is federally. Marijuana is on a level with heroin and cocaine. It's just stupid. Okay. It's just dumb. Stop it. Ridiculous. The fact is, whether it's going to be smoked, or whether it's going to be vaporized, or whether it's going to be consumed in some edible form, so be it. I'm certain of this. It's probably far less dangerous and volatile long term than alcohol. And there are also benefits to, and again, I think they've studied this. There are also benefits to all the people that have the people that are addicted to opioids. Apparently they have found benefit in that way. Patients who suffer from that, what do you call that, that horrible thing that they come back with, PTSD. People have used this. There's 1,000 good reasons, for this. I am glad with the trend. I hope that they make it legal as well in my state, and then across the whole country. Glad to have Jeff on, and reminded that not only have I had on two other prior guests on the subject, but I also had on Jolene Rivera, who publishes Kitchen Toke magazine. So it turns out with Jeff, that makes 4 guests that I've had on the podcast on the subject of cannabis. That's 4 out of 40. That's 10% of my broadcast. How do you like that? Anyway, people, this is Rob Rosenthal coming to you live, as I do every Wednesday night with All You Can Eat, the podcast about deliciousness. It is a pleasure to be with you. I look forward to having you back next week. We have a guest next week, too. I believe next week is the 10th. Yes, I think we're here next week with Katie Workman, who is, what is she? Is she mom? Anyway, Katie Workman, I should have had that prepared, and I am sorry, Katie, but she is a mom 100, I want to say. I just want to make sure that I get her handle right, but she is a cookbook author, a cook, and a very popular personality in the social media space. We'll have her on next week talking about all types of food, and there you have it. Episode 40, All You Can Eat. I'm your host, Rob Rosenthal, back next week. And remember, my friends, until then, life is short, so never waste a meal.
I'm the Teflon Pan Man. I'm the Teflon